Welcome in. Jesse Shule here from jesseshule.com. We're doing a week one preview for the NFL, and I am honored to have a special guest with me, Sean Higgs, the best NFL handicapper in the world, certainly last season and certainly top 5 all time at most of the sites that we both appear on. Sean Higgs, how you doing, my man?
Pretty good. Not too much hype here now. You throw that out there. This is like the regular. This is like me and Jesse, like 4 days a week we do stuff. Me, you, Ross.
That's right.
And I've yet to meet Jesse in person. I've never met Jesse.
No, one of these days in Sin City, I'm sure. But, we don't like to overhype things. But, when you have a record the way you had last year, you hit lightning in a bottle. You can't shy away from it. You got to promote it. It is what it is. It was probably the best NFL handicapping season I've seen since I've been doing this. How do you feel about doing it again?
Yeah,
do you think you can do it again?
I said it was such a aberration, and people could say, I mean, we see ridiculous nonsense on Instagram and TikTok. I mean, that's just not real, man. Like 64%. I joke like I'll take a 55%. Dude, it just everything has to go right to have a crazy season like that. I mean, what's there to say? I mean, do I want to duplicate that? Absolutely. But you know me, I believe in the old gambling god, so I don't like to get too overconfident. And when people even say when they watch Midday Money, I'm like, this is so monotone. I'm like, this better forget it. You just got to move on. You've been doing this as long as I've, Jesse. You got like 20 years plus doing this stuff. You got to ride the waves. It's just kind of grind on. Although I am excited, you want to be like, part of me is like, yeah, look at that. Like, what are you talking about? You see the nonsense, and I just want to like troll on people and be like, yeah, well, this is a good season that I had. But I don't know.
There is a school of thought, though, that a guy has a season the way you have, everything's got to go back. That regression to the mean type of philosophy. A lot of people believe in that, but there is exceptions to that rule. I mean, you and I both work with Kyle Hunter as well, and if you follow that guy, he just does it every year, right? Yeah. So it's not like it can't be done every year. And if I'm betting on a horse, I want to bet on somebody who's been there, done that, rather than somebody who's never done it. So that's sort of how I look at it. And I had a pretty good year myself last year, so I'm also feeling the pressure to deliver this season.
Yeah, I like the sports cabin because it has like I think I've won like the number one on there twice, which for me that's a great accomplishment. And like you're on that site, there's 120, 130, 140.
I mean, everybody's on there. I mean, a lot of people say best in the world, but I think if you finish number one at sports capping, you deserve to call yourself best in the world because pretty much all the big names are on there.
Yeah, and even in the past, they had a lot of guys. I mean, there's always it's a lot of guys. It's not like a 4-person site or something. I mean, guys are on multiple sites. They're on that site. It's again, I'm not gonna lie and say like I didn't check out like the Sports Memo guys or other channels that go through like the waiter and be like, hey, let's see who had a good season. Oh, it was me.
You can check out all the sites.
Nobody hit doubled up everybody.
Yeah, no. I think you tripled up the next closest guy on my site, and I think you at least doubled everybody. Nobody came within a sniff of having half as many profits as you did last year in the NFL.
It's funny because you have like a 7-3, and we say this like I'm a volume kind of guy. I'll come out 8 games, 11, maybe 4 some days. But they're early numbers. I tell you on look headlines. This is what I like. Here we go. I mean. But then you have people like, oh, I had a losing week. How do you go 7-3 and lose? Like, what are you doing? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Sometimes you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Do you know Rodcape?
Yeah. Just from the interwebs.
And he's also on Winners and Winers, and he's saying he's going to be on the list one day, and I'm inclined to believe him. I've seen him on the leaderboards there. So
is he? He's a Pickwise guy, right? Is that Pickwise site? Is that his site? He's on?
Winners and Winers.
Winners and Winers too. Okay.
Yeah, picks and parlays.
I think he's at a few sites, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I believe Insider's Room.
Insiders. That's the Insider. That's
he's quite active in the industry.
He's part of the Canadian Connection, the Insider's Room, the Canadian.
He's definitely not Canadian though.
No, but the Insider's Room is. I thought that was Tim Michaels' Insider's Room. Was it that?
It's part of that crew, anyways.
Look at that! Look at this rookie mistake. Here we go. You got a rookie action.
Okay, there we go. So now that I've made the rookie mistake, Sean Higgs, tell me what you think. Thursday night football, Detroit, Kansas City.
So right on the bet sidewise in this one. I don't think I could do much here because I have two teams. You have the Lions, who everyone is high on, right? And then you have Kansas City, and it's Mahomes, and everybody wants to bet KC. I see a 6.5. We've talked about. I want to take Detroit here. It's like, oh, Kansas City just has to win by a touchdown, but I don't think so. I think Kansas City can win this going away here. I'm not high in Detroit, and I said this last night. I like the under this game, 54.5. Because all you hear about is, oh, the Detroit defense, look at us, 30-something points a game they give up. They're terrible. It's, Andy Reid's still calling plays, but it's still a new coordinator or whatever the case may be. It's different. And the wide receiver core for them, I'm not sold on. Listen, Mahomes a Hall of Famer? Sure. Super Bowl champion? Absolutely. Andy Reid, Hall of Fame coach? Yes. But Jess, I just hear in my head when I go to sleep, people at the water cooler or wherever they're talking now, like in Discord chats, I guess there's no more water coolers. Oh my goodness, you got to take this over, right? Like I just think this is going to be a heavy bet here on the over. And I why do I think this game's like 31?
Probably go to 55.5 as well.
Why do I think this is like 31-20? And it's going to be like, oh, bad beat refunds. Look at this. He threw an interception in the end zone with no time on the clock. Hey, where's my bad beat refund? Give me the under here. Give me the under.
Interesting. I don't really have too many thoughts on the total myself. And I'm hesitant to have action in this game. I sort of feel
and I don't
like
have this on the sites yet. I don't have anything on this on this game on the sites.
I sort of feel like fading Kansas City, but it would be on the wrong side of the line movement if I did take Detroit. Yeah. Anecdotally, I want to ask you about this because anecdotally, I feel as though Kansas City is notorious for getting off to slow starts, going down early, and having that sort of we have them right where we want them mentality coming storming back in the second half, fourth quarter. And Detroit seemed to blow a lot of leads, have good starts and blow a lot of leads last year. Do you think there's anything to that? Do you have that same feeling that maybe a better value in the first half if you want to take the dog here?
The thing, why wouldn't you? They're going to come out strong. It's, I guess, Super Bowl hangover, right? Is that a thing here? But Kansas City's always like notorious that they'll come out and cover like 1 or 2 games a year, right? They just seem content to doing what they have to do to win a game. They're not concerned about covering. I think their ATS number is terrible. I mean, I thought at one point they were like on a 4-17 run or something bad. I would lean a little maybe like Lions first half. I wouldn't hate it, but it would be a money line play. I wouldn't want to do a plus 2 or 3, whatever they're giving you. Like, what is that about? If they're gonna come out and
give you $1.80 or something, if just to take them straight up.
I would just take them straight up because if they're gonna get out to a lead, they'll get out to a lead and first half because then they'll be like, oh, the second half adjustments. The Lions are for real. Like, I mean, you could hear the script play out basically, right? It's like the Lions were everybody's team, and look at this, they're up 14-0 on the defending champs at the end of one. Like you could just see it. And then here comes Mahomes magic, right? The Mahomes magic here makes a crazy play, like Uncle Rico throwing the ball from behind his back or something. Yeah, Lions first half, sure.
I have another thought on this game, Sean. The running back for Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco. I did bet on him to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and I did do a Super Bowl props bet video on this channel. I went 4-1 with my 5 props. One of those was an 8-1 bet on Burrow to lead the playoffs in passing. And that required Mahomes to throw for less than 200 yards in the Super Bowl. And he threw for like $188 or something. And
nice.
got me there plus 800 bet. And I also remember one of my favorite bets was, what was that bet you had? a rushing touchdown in the first half or something.
Rushing touchdown first half. I think for the Eagles were like over 1 or something like that. I was like, what is ridiculous? And it was juiced up too. I think it was. Normally, I'm not a juice guy, but I was like, what are you talking about?
It was like they were giving something away there. Yeah, that was a nice one.
That's
Pacheco's
the cherry on top of a great season when you're seeing stuff like that in Super Bowl. You're like, wow, even prop wise, you're crushing them.
The price for Pacheco to get into the end zone here is -110. And primary running back on a team that's a 6.5-point favorite with a total of 54.5. I'm not really a math guy, but I think the implied odds there are pretty good when their team total is going to be north of 30. And
you say a rushing total or just a rushing touchdown or just a touchdown?
Just an anytime touchdown.
Come on, he could catch an 11-yard screen for a touchdown on the first drive.
I mean, and I've noticed that this is a trend that's always developed is these primary running backs in high-powered offenses, week 1, week 2, week 3, the price on them to score touchdowns is quite low. And it takes a few weeks for people to catch on. By the time, I remember Todd Gurley when he was with the Rams. He'd be like -400 to score a touchdown in the middle of the season. But you were getting him at like -150, -160 for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then people just were cashing it week by week by week, and then all of a sudden it jumps to like 300. Which if you start doing the math and you think of a guy that's going to get 16 touchdowns in a season, and they play back then they were playing 16 games, but if you're averaging roughly a touchdown per game, I mean, if you're getting anywhere under 2 to 1, you're getting good value there.
I agree. Even with this guy, because he catches stuff out of the backfield. They're they use the little bubble passes or whatever you want to call them, screens or checkdowns as an extension of the run game. Why wouldn't you? Anytime touchdowns are like home run props, they lose value every season. Yeah, they catch up with them fast. They do, Rye.
Like I said, I think early on they're okay. I mean, I've had a look at a few of them for this week. We'll talk about that later, but the prices are still low for week 1. But I expect them to jump up by week 3. The value is going to be gone.
I agree.
But let's move on to the next game. I think we beat this one to death. We're looking at the Giants and the Cowboys, NFC East rivals. Dallas -3.5, over under 46.5. What say you, Mr. Higgs?
Yeah, man. And this one opened at 3. It went up a little bit. And I am a Cowboy fan, believe it or not. Even growing up in Jersey, my dad was. You see the Redskin helmet back there. He was a Redskin guy, a Cowboy guy, and I actually lean Giants here. I love their coach, and you saw last year he took Daniel Jones to I don't say another level, but the thing was Jones was terrible, and yet you get a good coach in there, and he exceeds beyond all expectations. And you saw Josh Allen take a big step back, and that's coaching. We could talk about. I'm going to throw Denver out there real fast. How terrible they looked last year with a bad coach, or the Chargers when the coaches make bad decisions. You got a good coach. You're in it. And Dallas, to me, I don't like the coach. I don't like this coach. I don't like last coach. 3.5. Yeah, they're talented, but I got a offensive line that's at the tail end of Hall of Fame careers. I got a running back who's now he's the focal point where more he was last year and previous years. He's kind of the guy come in there and catch you off guard because your monster back would just pound these guys, and then he'd come in and he's off to the races. I do like the Cooks pickup. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is fabulous. The tight end leaving Schultz, I think that's huge for Dak. The defense is solid. Yes, all that stuff. I like the Giants, and I kind of like the over a little bit here as well. Tamush is in the house. Tommy,
yeah, it's good to have Tommy here.
Yeah, we're doing shows Mondays. We'll do Mondays. Will probably be the I guess it'll be like the triple play of Thursday, Sunday, Monday night games. We'll probably look at on the Monday show here with Jesse and me.
Definitely looking forward to that. Well, Sean, I don't know if you remember this, but the last time we talked about the Dallas Cowboys, I asked you a question, and you're one of the only people in the world that understood what I was talking about, but you still got the wrong answer. So I'm going to ask it again. The Giants beat the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Mike McCarthy's the villain in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. They rip the mask off. Who's underneath?
We keep saying Jerry Jones, don't we? but it's
Jason
Jason
Garrett.
Garrett.
Jason Garrett, yeah. Because for years, Cowboys fans wanted to get rid of Jason Garrett, and they get Mike McCarthy, and they're like, "Oh, he's won Super Bowls, but is he really any different?" I mean, he's Jason Garrett all over again.
I wanted, believe it or not, I wanted like Mike Shanahan back in the day, out of Denver.
I always liked Shanahan. I was a big Denver fan. I loved Shanahan, Shannon Sharp, Ed McCaffrey,
Jason Garrett. And I've
Rod
had discussion in my chat. People talk about Romo. I'm like, Romo's all, and people bash Romo's not a Hall of Famer. You wasted a decade of Romo. The guy was fabulous. You wasted Dak Wilson's half of his career already between these two coaches. This is, again, you could say Dak is that great or Romo. I say the same thing about Shanahan, who blew 2 Super Bowls, double-digit leads. He blew NFC championship games. Bad coaching, and you want to say it's the quarterback. Where's the defensive stop? The quarterback, he's not going undefeated every year, whoever your quarterback is. It's not happening. You're down. He's going to throw an interception. It'll be a turnover. You can't just have comebacks every single week. When is it going to be on the defense to make a stop somewhere along the line? I see games, you're up 34-10 and you lose a game. That's on the quarterback? How the heck is that on a quarterback? Where's the defense? What kind of play calling coach you doing here? Again, I'm a Romo apologist. I like Romo.
The loss to the Chiefs was particularly bad for me.
You were up 10 in the fourth quarter.
San Francisco. And I kept on saying, all they got to do is run the ball. The only way we lose here is if they're passing the ball.
It's not like they're not a run-first team. They are a run team. 28-3. Yeah, 28-3. I'm gonna outsmart Bill Belichick. All right. Okay. Up 10 in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs. You blow it. Up 10 in the fourth quarter against the Rams. We go back to another Super Bowl. You blow it. Shanahan. Yeah. Take the Steelers this week, folks. Throw that out there. Purdy.
I thought you were talking about his dad when you said you wanted Shanahan for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I did want his dad. Dad Shanahan. Yeah, this is going back. Yeah. No, Kyle would never come to that. That whole thing after Parcells left, it was like, oh, we can't hire Drew Brees or not Drew Brees, Sean Payton. No, we don't want to a Parcells guy in here because he's going to do his own thing. Yeah, how bad was that? I cheered for the Jets when Parcells came to the Cowboys because that's a giant guy to me. All right, and all he did was give you Ware and Romo and a great team, and you ran him out of the building, just like you ran out Jimmy Johnson. Ridiculous. Cowboy, that's a Cowboy fan me coming out here, Jess.
I've never been a Cowboys fan myself. I've always been. It's in my nature to cheer against these big public teams usually. So the Chiefs are another one. I'm not a big Chiefs guy.
I used to like Barry Word and Christian Okoye. Remember that tandem they had back in the 90s?
The Nigerian Nightmare.
Elvis Graybeck. Barry Word. Barry Word was another big back they had back in the day.
Yeah, I used to like the old games against Denver at Arrowhead, and there was a few of them where the rain was pouring down and coming like rivers out of the seats and stuff. Yeah, those were the good old days. But let's talk about this Monday night game. I think we're going to be in agreement here. What say you? Buffalo minus 2.5, over under 46.5 against the Jets.
This game to me, I don't know where to go on this one. The world's going to be, I want to say the world's going to be on the Jets, right? Because it's Aaron Rodgers. Oh, it's Aaron Rodgers. You have good young players, and you bring in Alan Lazard and Reggie Cobb because he wants to bring his friends in there, which is why I say the Packers are going to be improved because you get rid of that kind of egomaniac who's going to like belittle people for dropping a ball. So you're not going to throw to young guys who this Jets team was pretty good last year, even though they had 3 different quarterbacks leading the show here and guys going down left and right on offense. They still kind of won some games. The defense is there. I can't get behind Aaron Rodgers. Call me crazy. I'm not a Josh Allen lover. You heard me talk about Dabo going to the Giants and making Daniel Jones look good. This game to me, I don't know where I'm looking at this. It is a 9-11 game for the Jets, and they'll be pumped up. But I don't know. I really don't know. Honestly, I want to lean to the Jets because it's a little home dog, but as weird as it is, they'll be the public team because of Aaron Rodgers, right, Chess? I mean, I know the Bills are, oh, look at this. We got a great wide receiver and, everything with their whole, right? Who's that guy? Hamlin. Oh, he's, that's another storyline in itself over there. I don't know if I'm betting this game. I really don't. I got 8 games bet, and neither of all these primetime games, none of them have been bet by me. And I'm a guy who bet these games in July,
I haven't bet any of these games either, and I probably won't get to the window on this one, to be honest with you. But if I had to play it, it would definitely be Buffalo, just because
right?
this is the Buffalo team that wins the division, and they're essentially the same team. We know what we're getting. With the Jets, you have that question mark. Aaron Rodgers comes in, and we know he's a hothead. He's got problems getting along with teammates. Egomaniac's a pretty good word for it. I don't like the idea that he seems to have enough power to dictate which players are going to come in and who's going to play in the preseason. And it's kind of like LeBron James making all the decisions for his teams. I mean, how's that working out for the Lakers? I know we're crossing over into different sports, but I'm a firm believer that coaches coach, players play.
We saw this with. Remember the Eagles built like the dream team. They had like Vince Young on the bench, and they brought in. He's like, oh, look at this! It's a great. All right, you could bring in all types of guys. It doesn't. How are they going to gel? Are they going to gel? Everybody's going to want. This isn't. I mean, I remember when the Rockets brought in like Malone and Pippen and Charles Barkley and they had Clyde Drexler and like Elijah Ryan. You're like, oh my God, they have like 8 Hall of Famers on team. They couldn't win because there was nobody to be the guy.
The Lakers with Gary Payton and Karl Malone, Shaq and
Lakers,
Kobe.
Yeah, you can't bring in a bunch of guys and expect them to play to the back of their cards, whether it's a football card, a baseball card, a basketball card. It doesn't work that way. And I get older guys want to come in and play that role.
This year's Padres.
The Padres are a good example. There's a lot you could do that. But I mean, you bring in Rodgers thinking we need a quarterback. I don't know if you need a quarterback. How about you need a guy who's healthy? Wilson stayed healthy. Your offensive line stays healthy. Your running back stays healthy. Your wide receiver stays healthy. You drafted him too for a reason. And not that I'm saying I thought he'd bet. I didn't like that pick. I'm like, I'm kind of tiny BYU guy, but I didn't love the Lance deal either. But he had players around him to be good. He got hurt. Other guys got hurt. I don't know. You bring in Rodgers and his whole act in New York. I mean, he's like a flat earther, 9/11 guy. I mean, and I love cranking it up. I get it. I that's fine. He's going to do something stupid out there, and this ain't Green Bay. This is New York.
He might turn out to be great for the Jets, and they might have a good season. But I don't know if you want to bank on that in week 1. What was it, 2 years ago, that he looked like the worst quarterback in the world, losing by like 30 to the Saints? And then after the game, he's like, relax. And he had that kind of,
I remember, they're terrible. And I remember the week after that, they were down in Tampa, and I'm like, I had Green Bay. I'm like, easy. Everybody thinks they're dead. They jumped out like a 14-0 lead and ended up playing like a 17-16 game. I barely covered like a 2. I'm like, oh my goodness, man, Green Bay, what are you doing? But that comes back to the crappy coaching. McCarthy. Remember McCarthy when he was playing like Seattle? We're on like the 3-yard line. Oh, we're going to kick field goals. Instead of being like 28-6, it was like 9-6 or something. Like, what are you doing? Just terrible. Run the ball, McCarthy. Just a joke. Just a joke.
Jason Garrett with a Scooby-Doo mask.
Freaking Garrett. The old clapper, that guy. All right. 3rd and 1. Let's go for it. I was talking to somebody on my son's football team. And he's all decked out in Cowboy gear. I'm like, fella, man, you like this team this year? He's like, oh, we're going to Super Bowl. I'm like, all right, let's come back to earth here for a second. Like, this is a team that is 3rd and 17, and Dallas runs like the draw play, whether it's Garrett or McCarthy. Every other team's chucking it downfield and getting pass interferences against us. We're the only team running draw plays on there. Every other team's throwing it downfield and getting a flag. Like the coaching is 1992 coaching. It's terrible. We have to have a Dallas Cowboys show.
I put up the Dallas line again because there was something that I wanted to mention that I didn't get to.
Right.
And it's Tony Pollard's anytime touchdown prop sitting at -110. Any thoughts?
I'm going to say yes, just because you made him the focal point. he's going to get touches down there. Like, who are they giving it off to? Who are they giving the ball to?
I think, Sean, that this is a classic bookmaker mistake and I see this a lot with the prop bets. They take like season averages and then they just divide them. So it's like, okay, this guy scored last year. Pollard 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. This line appears to be based on those numbers. If you look at those numbers, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. So he's every other game he's scoring a touchdown kind of thing. Okay, that's somewhere in that neighborhood, and it's not factoring in that they got rid of Zeke. Zeke had more carries than he did last year, fewer yards. Yep. Zeke had 12 touchdowns, and anytime touchdown includes the passing touchdowns too. And Pollard had caught 370 for. He had 371 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Receiving.
That's what I was gonna say. Like he had 9 touchdowns, but he wasn't even like the focal point. He was like the backup kind of guy.
So, I mean, if you look at Pollard's touchdowns and Zeke's touchdowns, between the two of them, they had 24. Now, you can't just assume that Pollard's going to pick up all that, but even if he picks up half of it, that anytime touchdown prop is way out of whack.
It's like the Pachenko one you said was what, minus 110, 115 as well. Like when I look at that, you know me, I'm going to look for something. I'll look at like maybe like a Michael Gallup touchdown at like a plus 180. Like it looks too easy, right? I mean, how isn't Pollard going to punch one in? The total's in the mid 50s. They made him the number one guy. They don't want Dak throwing 15 interceptions. Obviously, he's going to touch the ball 17 times out of the backfield. They'll probably catch at least like 5 or 6 targets coming out of the backfield. I mean, he should score touchdowns. He should have multiple touchdowns. Like, hey, I'd go over 1.5 touchdowns.
I find props like this all the time, and I don't hesitate to jump on them if I see value like this, because, like I say, I honestly think the bookmakers just roll out there's so many of them, right? The list is so long, all these different things.
I'm not the old, like, looks too easy, but you see him at even money, basically. You're like, is that a joke? Like, how's he not scoring a touchdown? I hope he does. I drafted him in my fantasy football draft. Like I took Pollard and
Well, like I said, I think they just look at it. He scored 9 touchdowns last year. We're projecting him to score 10 or 12 this year. They're not. Somehow somebody's failed to factor in that Zeke's gone and he should pick up a lot of that slack. And his projected touchdown total should probably be somewhere in the 15, over under 14 and a half or 15. Would be a fair line maybe for what you think he's going to score.
And then they have the Jets next week at home. Jets off a Monday night game.
And with Pacheco, he's only, what did he started really playing the role of a starter late last year, only a few games under his belt. So people just aren't familiar with him yet. And he was scoring touchdowns in those games that he was playing. He did well in the Super Bowl. I guess it's a little uncertain if he's going to work out in that offense, but
I think he's going to be an added bonus because I think his pass catching, like if they throw him to him out of the backfield, adds to his, anytime touchdowns there for him. I don't have how many receptions do you have last year? I don't have his player.
I'm pulling it up right now.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's because with their situation wide receiver. Maybe he turns into like not a slot guy, but obviously a little something more out of the backfield where you're going to get some ample opportunities to, they're within the 15-yard line. He could easily grab something over the middle for a touchdown.
So he had, where is he again? I lost him. 13 catches for 130 yards, no touchdowns last year.
13 catches, so that's a couple a game.
And 830 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. But he wasn't really the main guy the majority of the time. And who are his threats to take away his carries? Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I guess those guys are legit threats. But being the primary running back in an offense like that, you got to like him to somehow get one in there.
He was their top pick a couple of years ago. He fell out of the wagon there, or not into the doghouse, but he got hurt. I think he had a bad foot or something.
He's 3rd on the depth chart right now behind McKinnon.
I mean, and this guy was what their top pick was. I mean, I think he was number 1 at the second round, whatever the case may be. They took him And we're like, oh, look at this! What a steal by Andy Reid! Get another weapon for Mahomes.
Well, that's another reason why I like Pacheco, because I'm not really that high on Hilaire. Like, if you put Hilaire on the Jets, how's he going to do? Or on the Bengal, throw him somewhere else that isn't Kansas City. Is he gonna be getting in the end zone every day?
If anything, you see with Mahomes, Kelsey's his number one guy, and then he's got to find who he's comfortable throwing to. And why not a little guy scat back out of the back? Here he comes. Nobody's picking up the running back. Hopefully it's Pacheco, right? And he's across the middle, and he's getting these. I don't say they're garbage things, but he's unaccounted for, and he's got 13 yards. And next thing you know, he's got 5 catches and 87 yards on the game. You're like, where the heck? Someone's got to. And all it is a broken play. That's what makes Mahomes. But before he had Tyreek Hill, and he had Kels, and now who do you got? Tony, right? Kadarius Toney. I mean, McCole Hardman, who I love. I've been trying to catch McCole Hardman Super Bowl TDs for the last 10 years, it seems like, with me. He's gone. Who? Sky Moore? Sky Moore, the guy? Yeah, he got injured. Yep, never got a shot back. Yeah, I remember when they drafted him, like, oh, another weapon. This is why Andy Reid's a Super Bowl champion. Get hurt. Number 3 on the depth charts now. Number 3.
Well, Sean, I tuned into Look Ahead Lines last night, and I just want to give a shout out to anybody who's listening, anybody who follows my channel. If you're not watching Sean Higgs Look Ahead Lines, you really ought to consider it, because it's free money, in my opinion. Sean breaks down all the early value on the Look Ahead Lines on a Sunday night, and if anything, you're going to get closing line value. I heard you say 70% last year. You reckon you hit with
I'm gonna
getting
say
those favorable lines?
I mean, I had 64 something on the sites, right? So you had to maybe do better, because I didn't have every single game that we threw out there. And that's it sounds crazy, but I said in the chat, I said, people were here last year and the year before. Like, it's not a lie to say it's well over 60%. And if I did 64% on sites that I put out and bet on, then I'm sure the picks in the chat were as good or better. I mean, you were there, Jess. As
far as I'm concerned, you're giving away free money. You tune into Look Ahead Lines. You're going to break down every line that's out of whack, where you're going to get 3-4 points. I mean, every week it seemed like you had 3, a handful of games, whether it's 2, 3, 4. You're getting 4 or 5 points that you shouldn't be getting, and that's the difference. That's the difference between winning and losing for a lot of people.
But the people, like I said in the show last night, I said, I'm not saying let's wrap up stuff for 7 months for a Super Bowl future or an MVP or win totals. I said, this is a week. Like, can you not bet in-game NBA for a week, or whatever you got going on in September, hockey or baseball. Like, this will make you money where you could still do that down the road. Like, the lines are there. They come out on Wednesday. I talk about them usually on like the Thursday show sometimes, like, oh, these lines are out already. We'll talk about them more. And they're already on the move. You can't wait to Fox and ESPN and these channels have their pick show at 12:45 on a Sunday. Or put on Don Best or Spank Odds and like scrape the lines here at the end of the day. You're not going to win. The value is totally gone. You have to have an opinion on a Saturday or Sunday ahead of time, what you like. Jump on it, and the lines are going to move. Like, I don't understand. I do understand. People need instant gratification, and I'm all for that, Jess. I like to bet. I put a lot of games out. I'm a better first before I'm a quote-unquote tout kind of guy. But, man, and yeah, it's at early lines. You're not moving huge chunks of money, but you're winning. That's fine. Grind it out, folks. Grind it. It's not. These aren't lottery tickets. It's a battle every day.
Yeah, I try to tune into Look Ahead Lines myself, and it's not like I'm not capable of picking the good lines as well. But I tune in just in case I miss something, right? Like 95% of what you're saying, I've already soaked it in, and I'm already hip to it. But there might be that that one thing that I slipped past me, and maybe you remind me or turn me on to something that
because it's not like I don't roll in any sport and get like technical on a bunch of stuff. It's basic, cut and dry meat and potatoes. We like this game for this reason. Especially week one's a little tough in sports, I think, because you're going off of what you think or what I think of a team, right? Like college football, and I said I went first week was 0 here. I went 8-14 on my picks. All right, it's losing. But am I going to get crazy and worry about next week? No, I'm gonna like everybody else. You gather your information, right? You watch your shows on TV or YouTube, your magazines, right? No one's got scout. We don't. I'm not calling somebody in Arizona University asking information. I don't have. That's not how it works. I don't have that. I'm gather it up, right? So you gather it up in the weeks one. After week 1, week 2, then it's like the tea leaf reading for me. Jess. Now it's kind of like I know how this is playing out. This is what's going to happen on Sunday because this is how I thought about it. And next week the line's going to do this because this is happening right now. And sure enough, that's what usually happens.
I got to admit, I was pretty nervous about week 1 of college football. I was only able to pull the trigger on 5 games, and I am happy to report that I went 18-2 last September with college football, and that is still on the table for me. I lost 2 of 5, so I was 3-2 in week 1, but that 18-2 September is still on the table, folks.
Still roll out a 16-0 the next couple weeks.
But you know what's funny? You know what's funny, Sean, is that's how it played out last year. Both losses came early, and then it was just rolling for the rest of September. But I feel good about it. I feel like a lot of the stuff we talked about I think we did really well on the shows that we did last week, the Gamblers World shows.
Yeah.
I know we were 6-0 on the Thursday Friday slate.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what we did on the Saturday slate, but when you get off to a 6-0 start, you're probably.
Friday was for.
I had Miami over Miami.
Ohio.
You had, I think, you had the dog in the Illinois game.
Illinois, maybe? Purdue, or Fresno? No, Fresno.
No.
Oh, Toledo. Illinois, I had Toledo.
Yeah, you. I think you had Toledo. Yeah.
I totally forget. You do so many free picks. I forget who I have in the show.
I know. All I know is I did get a message from Ross saying we were 6-0 on the Thursday Friday slate, and it felt like we did pretty well. And I felt like we were on to a lot of things. And I know you didn't get off to the greatest start. And for me, 3-2 is nothing to write home about. But I feel like I learned. I feel like I survived, and I learned a lot. And I feel confident moving into now, and way more confident about week 2 than I was about week 1. That's how I feel.
I was 7-6 last year, so I had a few more games. So I bet we'll see how we do. What am I going to do? I thought I had some good angles and thoughts and ideas of what I thought would happen. And we had some games that were kind of close that just didn't get there. That's part of gambling, We'll see. It's 1 week at a time. I'm going to have a losing week. I don't mind having a losing week. I feel that makes you guys come out and be like, look at this, 7-0 again. All right. I'm not 7-0. Rycap took the goose egg. It's all right.
It happens to the best of them. It happens to the best of them.
It's. I gotta say, like I know we talk about the clock, like how it. I don't like last night's game. We saw 70-something points out of, right? I mean, other games you see no offensive out of. I don't know yet to how to gauge this on some teams. Like it looks like unders are to play out of the gate. Like on Sundays, if you like an under, that line comes out at noon on a Sunday. Bet the under right on a Sunday because it's going to come down. Like very rarely have they been going up.
I think Saturday's slate saw a lot of overs, and I think that trend sort of evened itself out. So I think that whole taking the under thing isn't going to be as much of a thing because there was a ton of games that went over on Saturday. And speaking of which, one of them is going to make bad beats. Last night's Oregon State game. Did you see how that ended?
Oh, was it against San Jose, like a touchdown, like 5 seconds left or something?
Yeah. So if you had the under, it was, and it wasn't just a touchdown. I think it was like a 20-yard strike. It was threading the needle between two defenders. Oh yeah, it was brutal.
And I had the Penn State one. I mean, I had the under. I had 53.5 on Penn State. You think it's sailing to an under, and then they punch one in with 5 seconds left? I'll tell you what. some of these bigger schools, if it's going to get down, I had UFC the other night too on the under, and they punched it in with like 40 seconds left. I had a 57.5, of course. Good closing number. Didn't get there. These bigger schools and quote unquote like rank kind of team, I'll tell you what, they get a chance to run it up, they will, because they know betting is legal. Their alumni are betting on it. That's money in their pockets for no money. And I think that's what you saw out of like Penn State, UCF, or Oregon dropped an 81. I mean, you're going to see some stuff like that, I think, going forward, going back to like the old early 90s kind of stuff, you know? You got to cover in that Penn State game. Yeah. Like, you don't tell me gambling's legal in PA. Okay, you can't bet on probably – I know in Jersey you can't bet on Rutgers. I don't know if Penn State you can bet on Penn State or Pitt, but you can't tell me they don't know. They know, and their alum are probably in their ear like his offensive coordinator's going down like, yeah, you know what you got to do here. They won't say that. You know 100% that is true. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. You're talking millions of dollars for that school, for him punching in the touchdown with 5 seconds to go.
Any thoughts on the total in tonight's game, Clemson Duke?
I sort of like Duke. I mean, this line opened at what, 9.5? It's at 13 now. Clemson.
I like
Duke
Duke.
didn't play any good teams last year. Duke had a nice season.
I was riding Duke last year during that. You know, they had that great season, 9 wins.
Like Arciata, the guy he was an AM guy or Baylor guy, wasn't he?
Mike Elko.
Elko. He was a SEC guy or Big 12 guy, defensive guy. He
I
turned.
Can't remember where he came from.
Yeah, he came from one of those schools. I mean, who saw last year's season? But again, who did they play last year? No, and
that's true.
As good as Clemson's been the last like 2 years, they're not 2 years, but they're on a 6-6 ATS run. So they are not the same. Granted, DJ whoever's in Oregon, he couldn't do anything offensively. This kid,
but look at him at Oregon State though. He looked pretty good with the Beavers.
Yeah, what is that about? So again, does that transpire back to Dabo here? Like, how come that guy couldn't do something in Clemson? A playoff team for a couple straight years. What's that about? I don't know what to expect from Clemson. I want to take the dog, but it's like, is Duke ready to step up in class and hang within 2 touchdowns here at home?
I put out a free play on the total, took the under 55.5. And we don't have first half plays at Sports Capping, so I don't have first half plays on my own site, but it says in the analysis for those that bother, I know a lot of the people, they follow our picks, they don't even read what we write. You should, because I gave out a free pick on the under in the Beavers game yesterday, and if you read the analysis, I told you take the first half number, and I said that again here. And I've noted we've talked a lot about this trend of unders with the new rules and the clock stoppages. And like I said, on the Saturday slate, I don't think it panned out very well, but it did in the first. I think that first half trend of low scoring first halves really did hold throughout the entire week. So I think that's something to keep an eye on because, sure, in the fourth quarter when teams got to play catch up, they're going to hurry up and they're going to,
Yeah.
But you don't have to play catch up in the first quarter. So. Nope. Time flies early in these games with the new rules. So
because they think, all right, we got time. We can still play out our game plan, and then it's halftime, and you're down, whatever, 20-7. And like, all right, we got to make some adjustments now. What are we going to do? We got to go to overdrive here in the third quarter. And here comes the scoring. I mean, they should take care of Duke. But here's the thing with that. I mean, the Clemson system, you saw other guys on there. Like, well, why would you bring a guy in there if he's not in your system, though, Rye? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. They brought him in there for a reason.
I like Riley Leonard, too, the quarterback for Duke. I mean, he's a gamer. And I know that Duke had a soft schedule last year. And Kansas is those two programs were sort of on a similar path, right? The basketball schools, and they both had sort of soft schedules, and they both won a lot of games. But when they played each other, that was a really back and forth battle, a really competitive game. And I mean, Kansas did play some good teams. Didn't they play Texas Tech and Texas and compete in those games. If I'm not mistaken. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think they beat some of these teams, but they lost by one score type thing.
yeah. No, they were competitive last year. They won. I mean, they won games.
Looks like we lost Sean, but even when their quarterback went down, they brought in Bean at quarterback at Kansas. They stayed competitive. I was impressed with Kansas. I was impressed with Duke when they played Kansas, and I don't think. I think it's a mistake to write this Duke team off as a team that won 9 games because just based on a soft schedule. You got to factor that schedule in, but I'm not going to
Yeah,
be
I'm back.
surprised if Duke.
See, I try to pull up the Duke record on my one computer, and yeah, 8-4 last year on the wins. So and 8-4 ATS. So I had to go to the other computer to do that. Yeah, who saw that coming? Because the year before that they were absolutely trash, 3-9, and then 2-9.
And if there's a time and a place to bet a team that's got inferior talent, a smaller school, you're playing a monster program like Clemson. If there's a time and a place to take a double-digit dog like that, it's when you're at home in week 1, right?
Exactly.
You fancy Duke's chances in week 1 a lot more than if this was like week 6. Clemson's already a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
And Klubnik's a guy that, he played a few games last year. He wasn't that impressive. The jury is still out on Klubnik. At this point, I've seen more out of Riley Leonard than I have out of Klubnik. Would I like to get 14? Sure, but 13 I think is worth a stab. I wouldn't be taking Clemson here.
Yeah, I don't. So it's still 13. Yeah, 13. It went to a 13.5. Now it's back down to a 13, even a 12.5. I don't hate it. I mean, am I going to bet it though? I'm not going to.
See, that's the problem. I didn't remind these guys to smash the like button, so guys like Tommy just forgot. Normally, when I do my shows, nobody has that excuse that they forgot, right?
That's how you got to start the show.
And that's how I usually do it. But I don't usually have a guest, so we're still getting used to this. But yeah, Duke secondary is dog shit, says Rye Cape.
Yeah, you're playing a team that has NFL type guys on in Clemson. Duke isn't really a NFL hotbed. You're more of a let's win one for the Gipper kind of rally, like Duke basketball. We're gonna play our game. It'll be ugly. Get to your spots and try to win. Against speed, that does not translate, which is why we see like a Notre Dame plays like your Clemsons and your Alabamas. They get blasted because they don't have the talent. It's the same kind of drop off here with the secondary against guys running for Clemson. First half, though, we'll take a Jesse first half here. Duke first half might be worth a shot here, not the full game. I could see him hanging tough for a half, and then the lateness coming into play.
You got a new offensive court. Don't they got Garrett Riley at offensive coordinator?
Yeah, he's a TCU guy, right?
Yeah, so a new OC with a quarterback that only played in a handful of games last year, didn't look that good. And I know I've heard a lot of talk that, Garrett Riley is going to come in and fix this, because Clemson struggled on offense last year. Garrett Riley is going to fix it. And yeah, again, week 6, I wouldn't want to mess with these guys. Yeah. Week 1's a different story.
You're working out the kinks.
And I'll point this out. Garrett Riley turned TCU into a offensive juggernaut, right?
Yes.
You want to know what they did in week 1 last year? All they did is run the ball. They ran for 275 yards and 4 touchdowns against Colorado, one of the worst teams, or the worst team in the Pac-12. And yeah, they won 38-13, but they weren't chucking the ball around the yard. They were quite conservative, and they just they sort of flexed their muscle with the running game, and that gives you an idea where that guy's head was at. It was his first game with TCU, right, as the offensive coordinator. He was still trying to figure out the quarterback situation. So could there be some deja vu here in his first game with Clemson? And especially especially if you're. I don't know if you remember this, but with the Colorado game, that's exactly what I said about Colorado TCU. Is last year they just ran the ball down their throat. Colorado couldn't stop them, and I think we should clip this from the Gamblers World video. But I think what I said is, do you really want to send this quarterback out there throwing at a Deion Sanders coach secondary when you could probably just run the ball and win that way? Well, TCU averaged 7.1 yards per carry, and they threw the ball 60% of the time, and the guy got picked off twice, and they lose the game. So
picked off twice in the end zone. Picked off in the end zone. Yeah. Picked off at the 2. And so let's hit that game real fast because everybody's all over. And I had TCU and I had the under, thinking TCU's going to run the ball. First game, Colorado, meshing of the systems. You get a interception. 2 basically in the end zone. 1 was at the 2-yard line. 1 was in the end zone, a field goal. Those flipped the other way. It is 38-21, 38-24 TCU ahead of Colorado. Is that a big win for Colorado? Do they hang on? I mean, you saw some bad plays. And again, you make a play. That's how you win games. You make plays like that. But I mean, they could say whatever. Oh, Colorado, I'm impressed with the. Okay, Hunter looked really good. TCU had a questionable defense. They have 3 guys back on defense. I mean, they weren't a good defensive team last year. They played by the seat of their pants and weren't all. They were like the Minnesota Vikings in close score games. The line next week, they were a 7-point dog to start this against Nebraska. They opened as a 5-point fave down to 2. Am I going to be shocked when Colorado loses this week? Nebraska had trouble scoring 10 points last week against Minnesota. And as we saw another team
kicked off 3 times.
I'm just saying, we saw another team get all you talk about is Coach Prime in Colorado on Fox Sports here, and they put up a 42 spot. I mean, who's going to be laughing next week when the guy they just said is better than Bear Bryant basically off of 1 game, right? I mean, listen, I like Deion. I'm a Deion guy. I like Deion Sanders a lot. It's 1 game versus a bad team. I shouldn't say a bad team. A team that had a bad defense, and you got a couple turnovers that won you the game. You're going to get that every week? Is that the way this team's going to play? Picking off guys in the end zone twice a game? Good luck.
Sean, I agree with you, but I got to say this. Shadir Sanders threw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He did it on the road against a Power 5 school. TCU's got their problems. It's a one-off. As much as you can't overreact, 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, how many guys throw? There's a lot of good quarterbacks that never do that in their career. Throw for 500 yards in a game with a clean game, 500 yards. What was it, like 80% passing, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. There's just not a lot of guys that have ever done that, really. I mean,
I saw a guy in Texas State throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and beat Baylor today on the road.
This is true. But 500 yards is a lot, though.
That was the whole team, though. It wasn't like they were running. I mean, what did they do on the ground here?
Yeah, they didn't have a lot of rushing yards.
Well, I'm trying to find the box score. Apologize.
I mean, Nebraska is going to be a lot better defensively, but can Nebraska score? Is the question.
I mean, 500 yards through the air, 55 yards on the ground on 34 carries. A yard a carry, 1.5.
And they gave up 7.1 yards rush per carry to TCU.
They had one running back,
so they can't stop the run.
I mean, one running back goes for 165 yards. The other guy goes 15 for 46. He scores 3 touchdowns. The guy who goes for 160s, I guess he's so gassed from those 60-yard scampers that they take him out of the game, and the other guy gets the last 15 to punch him in the end zone. The interceptions kill. Let's be honest. 2 picks in the end zone. This game is not close. It's a double-digit win for TCU. It's fine when you're chucking the ball all over the place when you're down. Come on. You were chucking the entire time.
Yeah, I think the fact that they can't stop the run is going to be an issue against Nebraska for sure.
I mean, talk about scoring too fast. I mean, they were marching down the field and getting nothing. 2 touchdowns taken away. I mean, you don't know they're going to score a touchdown because obviously they threw 2 picks and missed a field goal. But that's a worry for me. Just to blindly say Colorado's back. What's the win total? Did it go up from 3 back to 5 that they were projected to win? I don't say I'm the smartest cat. I mean, I think the guys who make the lines are pretty smart. They were a 20-point dog for a reason. They were a 7-point dog for a reason. They went from 5 to 3 wins for a reason. I'm not one game. All right. Where's Texas State? They in the top 10, folks? They beat Baylor. You know? Come on.
Certainly never want to overreact to what happened last week, but
I can't.
There is a caveat, though. You can't ignore what happened last week either. You see things.
I just think
things.
For that game, everybody's just so wrapped up in that particular game. That's all everybody's talking about. He's going to go to the NFL. Why would Sanders want to go to the NFL? Those guys won't listen to him. They're all NFL guys too. You can build a team, whether you're going to stick in Colorado or go to another school, wherever. You can build it, right? Guys want to play for you. You get the cameras.
After this win under his belt, it's probably not going to matter what Colorado does for the rest of the year. They won on the road at TCU in week 1. Colorado, that's such a huge win for this program that it's already sparked.
What happens if they lose to Colorado State, who couldn't do anything? They couldn't fill up a glass of water. They lose to Colorado State in 2 weeks.
That'll put a dark cloud around the stadium for sure. But
right, he put 500 up in SMU. You saw. We saw Washington State look. I watched like 2 series. I'm like, what? I thought I had a good number on Colorado State plus 2 touchdowns, and it got bet down to 9. I thought, all right, I'm looking good here. They look like a high school team versus Alabama, and this guy just tore up a Big 12 team. Again, it's one game. We'll see what happens. That's why they play the games, as they say.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting game to watch next week, that Nebraska Colorado game. And like I said, one of the things I noticed certainly was the rushing yards for TCU, and Nebraska's obviously going to come in and try and run that ball. So, and they're not going to make the mistake of throwing twice for every rushing attempt.
Who dresses?
Going to roll with Jesse on this game to go under the first half tonight. Yeah, might as well. Especially if I think I got a 28.5. So, that's the thing. You don't even need a punt. You got 2 long drives for each team. They score a touchdown on both drives, as long as they're not doing it quick.
That's it. Yeah, Duke is definitely not a strike fast offense.
And I'm certainly sure Duke's going to be punting at some point too.
The thing is, are they going to come out and try to push the pace? Like, hey, look at this. We're going to try to throw the ball. Because for me, the clock, I don't mind the clock is running. That's fine. But if you're throwing a ball and you get incompletions, then it's a moot point. Although I don't see that really with Duke. I think Duke's going to be more of a.
Yeah, well, what we'll probably see though is you'll see Duke sort of maybe want to do that, and then you'll see the opposite from Clemson, right? So if Duke, and this is what I said about Colorado and TCU, and they scored 80 points, almost 90 in that game. But I will tell you though, Sean, it went under in the first half.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I said about that game is you got one team wants to play fast, so they're going to try and sling it around the yard, and then you're going to stop them, force them to punt it back to Clemson. Clemson slowly rolls down the field 5 yards at a time, running the ball, running the clock, possessing it.
Yeah.
And that's how you win. If you can do that, and you can exploit that advantage, that's what TCU failed to do. If they just did that, they would have won that game, in my opinion. If you're average, how many teams average 7.1 yards per carry and lose the game? Yeah, that you won't see that very often. And I think that's an indication that the coach screwed something up if that happens.
Well, Yes, but you also, I mean, you got 2 picks in the end zone. You get down there and then you throw a pass, like you throw one pass, it gets picked off. You know, you got down there on a monster run. Like I remember I watched it. I'm like, here we go. They had like a 70-yard run. They were on their own 1-yard line. They got down there. Next play, it's picked off on the 2-yard line. You're like, what the heck just happened here? You go, I mean, that's a huge momentum shift.
Well, Sean, we've been going for an hour, and I told you we were only going to go for 20 minutes. So I know you got to do midday money, so we should probably wrap this up. And yeah, for everybody who's tuned in today, check out Sean 7 days a week, winning free picks on YouTube, midday money, but free money. Sean gives out free money every Sunday night during the NFL season. Look ahead lines. You've got to catch that at winning free picks.
This is going to be a good show on Mondays. It'll be, especially in another week when we're going to be talking about NFL. I mean, we'll probably hit on some college football, but let's be honest, people are going to want to talk NFL on Mondays. You got to come up with a good name as opposed to like week 2 picks. It's got to be some kind of like, I don't know.
Pulverizing the pigskin is one. That's one of my catchphrases. Pulverizing the pigskin.
Pulverizing pigskin. We need something on Monday. What's it going to be? Because it's going to be talking about the 3 primetime games and the recapping and what we liked and disliked in week 1.
Well, maybe we'll hit the chat. The chat can name our show.
Yeah. Well, listen. Once they see it, they'll be back on Monday. Your first live one, you never know what you're going to get in the first live show. Who's coming in? Who's got a thing on? Because they think it's probably just a video, and then they'll watch it later, and they're like, "Wait a second, this is live." You'll see the comments. Wait, this is a live show? Yeah, it's live.
Well, I think we've pretty much said everything we need to say here. So before we go, I just want to remind everybody out there: smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Please offer your comments below the video. We'll catch you next Monday. And thanks, Sean, for joining us.
Oh, anytime, Jess. Thanks for having me, bud.